Welcome back to the Chia farm. There's apparently a lot of you that don't know what this is, so quick overview. These are hard drives. Each of these hard drives have a bunch of plots on them. Plots are kind of like lottery tickets. They feed up a number to a blockchain, kind of like Bitcoin, other cryptocurrency. And then that number is added to the blockchain, and you get a reward, 2 Chia. Unless you're farming, which I am, then you get about a quarter of a Chia, which is the cryptocurrency that we are farming. And then the pool gets the rest, but you get a payout for the amount of partials you contribute. So that's what this is. It's a bunch of lottery tickets on hard drives. And last video, since if you're just coming on it, you probably didn't see it, I did some experimentation with optimizing energy. And the biggest thing is over here, I got 10 drives that are running USB. That means they're not running off, or they weren't running off this power supply, but I've since switched it. You'll see last time I started with these drives, there's 5 adapters. So I had 5 separate power adapters, and I said, that's a lot of AC to DC conversion. Can I make that more efficient? So I tried with one single adapter. It was about the same. And then a lot of people said, you know, you should actually run that off the PC, the PSU, which I did, you can see here. I plugged off 2 12-volt rails. They are running over the 2 feeder lines, which feed these 5 adapters. Now I have done that before. If you come over here, you can see I have 2 drives that actually ran off a SATA adapter. It's pretty cool. It takes the SATA and runs it to a 12-volt barrel plug. So that had been working well. I didn't do it on a big scale. I did do it here, you can see. Again, we got that 12-volt rail running over to these 10 drives. Zero difference between running it with 5 separate adapters versus running it one giant laptop adapter we had. And now we're down to these 2 barrel plugs, and it's a pretty short distance. It's not like it's using a lot of copper to get that power there. I found no difference. It's all within the same watt of each other. So I'm just going to leave it like this because it looks a little cleaner. I think it looks better. But over on the Gigahorse one, kind of had an opposite issue. This is the Gigahorse farmer running separate software to farm the Chia. But here you can see I have those same barrel plugs. And on this system you can see based on the power output, it's a lot less. But these barrel plugs have a long distance to travel before they get over to the drives. And they got a lot more drives to power, to be fair. So what I found with this system is, and the reason you'll see these barrel plugs go nowhere, just disconnected them, is that when I had the 5, well, total of 10 wall adapters plugged in powering these drives, it actually was less watts than using it off the power supply unit. And this power supply unit is not an inefficient power supply. This is like a platinum power supply. That means it's very efficient at converting AC to DC. Ran the power. My theory is, I have no idea because I'm not an electronics engineer, but my theory is there's so much copper it's got to push that power through all the way down here and then back up again to the drives. That could be creating a lot of heat, losing a lot of watts. But it was significant. It was 5 to 10 watt difference running off the PSU versus running the 10 wall adapters. So I'm just sticking with the wall adapters. They're free. They came with the little USB drive adapters. No reason not to run it. Still looks pretty clean because I can hide it below the little game thing I got here. Nobody knows. Nobody is the wiser of where it's coming from. And I'll show you on the UPS actually. You can see there's a huge difference. I never got it down to the base load that I had just running the wall ones. So for this system, I'm going to stick with the wall adapters. This system is the Gigahorse farmer. It's running C7 compression. I got 808 terabytes of raw space. So that's how much space all these hard drives are providing. But because of that C7 compression, the effective space is 1.1 petabytes. And the all-important number is how many plots, 11,100 plots on this system using that C7 compression. And that C7 compression comes at a cost. The CPU here is actually Ryzen 5700, which means it has an integrated GPU. That's why you don't see one hanging off the edge. I wanted to go with a little bit lower powered GPU to keep the powers under. You can see the power is pretty low on this system. It's not pulling a lot right now. I think it's doing a decompress. We'll say 220 some odd is the base load. That's not counting these, obviously, since we're using the wall warts. So the GPU in here is decompressing the plots, but it also is getting help from the other farmer's GPU, which is only doing CPU. So it's a little confusing. This system is an all GPU decompression system. It's using the integrated GPU in the system itself, plus the integrated GPU in the other system because it can use what's called remote compute. Cool thing that Max came up with, and he did the Gigahorse software. So again, this is a 808 terabyte, 1.1 petabyte effective with 11,100 plots. This is all farming successfully. I'm pretty much done with this one. I always say that, but I wind up buying more. Come over here to the official farmer. This is using the CNI, which is the Chia Network Incorporated. It's like their official software. It took them a lot longer to get to the compression stage, and then it took them even longer to get to 128 gigabyte plotter. Yet he has 256 for a while, so that's why I bought my massive workstation that I have, my 256 gigabyte memory workstation. This system is running C5 compression. It's a little bit different than Max's C5. This one you can actually run with CPU. So again, the integrated GPU on here is servicing the Gigahorse farmer, but the CPU is the only thing farming this. And I think we're at, this is 620 terabytes of raw space. With the C5 compression, 788 terabytes of effective space. And we got 7,909 plots. So a lot less plots here, but the CPU can do it with C5 compression. It's not overly complex compute. So this system, again, is pretty much done. Got everything I need here. We did have a problem with this drive here. Decided to forget his REFS partition table. He's since remembered it. I was able to salvage the plots off that and get it back, but not had a problem with REFS since. My last video, I had a huge rant on REFS. It felt good to get all off my chest, but I've not had a problem. I'm still sticking with REFS. Again, probably because I'm crazy. You can see here, drives are all quiet. Naturally cooled, no fans required. Sitting on the wall here. So with that, we'll head over to the new exciting development. We've got the Gigahorse C7 compressed farmer here doing its thing, GPU decompression. Then we got the official CPU farmer over here doing the official C5 compression. But there has been a new development from NoSSD, a mysterious, I won't say shady because that's not fair, a mysterious pool. It's been around for a year. They have come up with a C15 compression. That means that where this is a 77 gigs plot size with a C7 Gigahorse, and this is about 82 gig plot size with a C5, still better than 100 gig, but not ridiculous. C15 is 50 gig. That's a 50% less size, which is insane. And if you've been farming Chia since the beginning, making 100 gig plots took 8 hours back in the old days. We're now down to less than 5 minutes to make a 50 gig plot that counts as a full-size plot. So we'll head over to the workstation and see what's going on over there. And here's that fancy workstation, the ThinkStation P520 with 256 gigabytes of memory on top of my fridge, because before I mount things to the wall, this is where I put stuff to play around with it. It's out of the way, you know, space saving. Did the classic slap the hard drives on the ground mounting. Don't have any, I guess I could have mounted to that wall, but I'm just playing around and seeing how this NoSSD pans out. That's it. I got both my GPUs in this system now. I don't need them to plot the C5 or the C7s. They're done. Right when I was thinking, what am I going to do with this honking workstation besides look at it and, you know, appreciate how awesome it is. And then NoSSD comes out and says, hey, we got 50 gig plots now. Check it out. So I said, well, perfect. So I put this machine on a VLAN. The NoSSD is closed software. That means nobody knows how it works. They auto-update, which I just left because it's on a VLAN. That means they can throw a botnet on your machine if they want to randomly, because they can just update their client at any time. A lot of people are hesitant about that. Again, if you're going to do it, I recommend a VLAN, isolate it from everything else. The only thing I can do is mess up this machine. If they do, I'll just wipe it, so there's nothing important on here I need. The plot format that they use, though, is not a plot format the other ones use. You're actually using their key and farming to their pool. So really, you're just a harvester. And if they go belly up, you just got a bunch of useless plots. But taking only 4 minutes to make a 50 gig plot, not a big investment. And I got 2 GPUs not doing anything, so if I have to, I'll just replot to, I think Mad Max says he's going to come out with a similar plot size, so I'll probably bounce over to that. But some people say, why do you have crazy label hard drives? Well, I grabbed the cheapest 18 terabyte hard drive available on the internet at the time. And this time, it came up Dell branded Exos X18 drives. So I thought that Dell was just slapping their name on a Seagate X18 drive. Turns out they have custom firmware on here, and I assume that's for the enterprise application for these drives. So right now, if you go to the internet and look for 18 terabyte drives, This would be the cheapest ones you find. They're on special for 155 bucks, which is not bad at present. I'm sure they're going to get cheaper. But I went ahead and upgraded the firmware on these with that Dell utility, which was exciting because I'm a firmware guy. I don't really know how firmware is created or coded, but I love to upgrade firmware. Just something I get a kick out of. So now that these are upgraded, formatted them REFS, of course. I got 140 terabyte of drive space now to play around with this NoSSD. So far I got 45 terabytes of plots, but that's 90 terabyte effective. So that means I got double the effective space on this farmer. So that's 900 plots that I've got that the GPU is still cranking out. I should have this full in a couple days, but I can't believe the plot size is down to 50 gigabyte now. So this is going to keep on plotting. We're going to head over to the software side now, check out the desktop. I'll show you the drive setup and everything. All right, kids, we're on that Lenovo workstation up on the fridge. We're on the desktop of it. I'm going to go ahead and start the NoSSD client. What I did is I specified I want the 1070 to be the farmer, harvester. They call it mining. They obviously came from Ethereum, Litecoin, all that GPU cryptocurrency. They're calling it miner. Their client is set up to be a command line. Just run it, not think about much. I added some flags. Obviously, no temp means just do it all in memory. You can see over here it's going to start building up the plotter. Otherwise, it will farm to the hard drive. So they are definitely set up for low resource Chia farming because you don't really even need a GPU. I'm told you can plot these 50 gigabyte plots on the CPU. It'll take a lot more power, but it'll be just about as fast as the GPU. GPU is a little more energy efficient, but you'll be able to get plots off without a GPU, and you don't need a lot of memory. You can even, I think you can even do 16 gigabyte on this, and it'll just use a crap load of hard drive activity. But since I said no temp, they're doing the whole thing on 128 gigs of memory. So they did a lot of work here to get this accessible to people with not a lot of resources. It does work better if you have a GPU and you have lots of memory to spare. But you can see here I can do up to 6199 of these highly compressed 50% space, 6,000 of them on this machine with just this 1070. I don't think it counts this because this is my plotting one. So I think just a 1070 you can do 6,000 on here. It says for all mining GPUs, so that's, yeah, it's got to be the 1070. The TI is just plotting in this, and you can even tell it to farm with both of these. So you probably get more if you have two 1070s, but I just wanted to dedicate this one to plotting. So the next thing goes down and grabs all your plots. And it actually is pretty efficient. It clears out any old ones that were canceled last time. So it does make an attempt to clean up your drives. It's taken a while to allocate the memory. Immediately it starts, I'm going to call it harvesting. It's not really farming. You're using their keys. You're sending it to their pool. And it's just sending parcels up to their pool right now. So, and then right here you can see finally it's allocated. It's going to grab the drive with the most space and immediately start making a plot to it. And this thing's fast. It's already at 6%. We're at 11 seconds. We'll come back to this a little bit, but you can see it's a very fast plot. The longest time is going to be writing to the drives. Just like any other time you want to write to a NVMe drive, if you can, that'll be faster. It won't be limited to this 250 megasecond hard drive speed that I got. The GPU, it says 50% in Task Manager. I'm sure it's 100%. I mean, this is pretty quick. And then the farmer, you're just going to get a little bit of blips every once in a while because I only got 905 plots. As this gets bigger, this will get a lot more busy. But right now, it's not got a lot to do. It's just decompressing a few plots for the signage points. The very exciting thing, I thought at least, was these new hard drives. They're cheap. They're custom Dell firmware, the PAL 9 ones you can see here. SN04 is the standard C-chest one. I got some of those mixed in here too. The only thing I can tell with this Dell firmware that's different is if you try and do a idle B disable, like right here you can see I'm saying disable the idle B timer. That means it won't park the heads. It'll be a lot less load unload cycles on your hard drives. It doesn't do it. It says it can't change it. And if you go and check the settings, you can see it's at this really high timer, but it's not disabled. They did disable the C in the standby. So whatever enterprise firmware purpose this serves, they don't want to change these timers on here. So that's one disadvantage of the Dell branded Exos. The other one, it doesn't do the low current spin up, which I like because if you ever restart your machine, it doesn't pull a ton of watts starting up. The drives will start up slower. They won't pull a circuit on you. And then it does support the power balance feature, which is like little better power control on when you're seeking stuff back and forth. So anyway, that's the firmware difference. Really cool that you can't even use the C chest utilities to upgrade the firmware. You have to use a special Dell utility, which it talks about what it does here. It actually fixed some things that don't affect me whatsoever. But I love updating firmware, so I had to do it. Back to the plotter though, you can see this is all it does. This is the NoSSD client. It will plot. At some point it runs out of space and it just harvests, but it's plotting and harvesting. And now that we're at 81%, I think it was going to the J drive. So if I run over here to the J drive, you can see this thing is powering out at the full 250, 270 some odd megaseconds. So it's a regular Seagate. I think this is one of the, no, it's a 2J. So this is a regular Exos one. But the Dell ones are the same speed. It's the same hardware, same everything, just different Dell firmware. I thought it was pretty cool. That said, the client is just going to keep running. It's going to keep sending stuff. If you go over to their page, you can only farm to their pool, and you are using their keys. So you are, again, a harvester to their pool. But it does have regular payouts. I'm actually getting paid. Not a lot right now because I only have the 900 plots. But as it gets bigger, I'm assuming they take a percentage, obviously. I don't know what the fee is. I think it's 5%. But this is your page, what you see. Make sure you're actually farming. You can see it's not overly complicated. It just says, yeah, you got partials coming in, you're getting credit for this, which is nice to know. Everything's working good. The plotting continues. We're at 92%. We'll wait till we get up our full plot here, but again, it's just, this is hard drive write that we're waiting on, and it'll be under 4 minutes. But the hard drive wait is the longest thing. If you went to NVMe, we'd already be done, so we'd be under 2 minute, probably under 3 minute plot for a 1070. Which is crazy, and it's a 50% plot too, so recommend trying it out. Again, I'm on a VLAN here. Recommend a VLAN because you don't want to be in a situation where you've got stuff exposed to unknown software. But if you have a system you're not using, if you have a GPU or even a CPU, because again, it does farm well with a CPU, they say, might as well give it a shot. Download it, run it, and then verify that you're getting on a pool. It does take a few hours to show up on their pool. This wasn't immediate. I don't know if their servers are extra busy or what, but it actually is farming successfully. So now we'll do a little magic time warp action. Go back to our plotter here. It's been about a couple minutes. Save you some time. You can see here it finished one plot in 5 minutes 31 seconds, and then the next plot was in 5 minutes 40 seconds. And I would say at least 2 to 3 minutes of this is writing to that hard drive. So if you have a quality NVMe and you're doing all memory plotting and you have a 1070, you're going to get 3 minute plots of these 50%. So that's very fast. And CPU, I'm told, is similar. It just takes a lot more energy. The key is writing to the NVMe instead of the hard drive, which I'm writing to. So I don't think I'm up to a write point yet. Let's see here. Yes, I am. So the F drive is full 250 meg write, and this is one of them Dell drives. So the holdup for me is the hard drive speed. If you go NVMe, you're going to be a lot faster. And again, if we go up to the very beginning of this, if you have 2 of those 1070s, which these are the cheap $150 GPUs, you don't really need any more powerful than this. You can get up to 12,000 plots, which is a lot. And then you get, those plots only take up half the space. So this NoSSD client, I think, is pretty cool. Who knows what's going on in the back? And they've been around for a year, so it's not like they're new or anything. Their dashboard does a pretty good job telling you what's going on. I, of course, made my own dashboard like I did with the other 2 systems. This one, not a lot of detail you can get out of that client. You can basically count the plots. They went for simplicity, coming from the cryptocurrency miner background. There's not a lot of detail you can get out of it. There's no API to grab things from. You count the plots. I do not have a UPS on this because I'm feeling saucy with this machine. It's up on my fridge. If it goes down, so what? It's kind of in my experiment more than anything else. But if it keeps going and it takes max a while to get the 50% compression on the Gigahorse, I'll probably be running this system for a while. I mean, they take a fee, but the 200% reward you can't pass up. You can see all the drives I have. Any PAL 9 one is a Dell drive. Highly recommend the Dell drive just for the firmware adventure if you're a super firmware nerd like me. Probably not a lot of people are, but that was fun not using C-Chest. A totally different firmware running on basically the same hardware as the Exos ones. Again, I got plot counts. That's about all I can do. Head over to the official farmer. Nothing's changed here a lot. You can see it does this is a lot more detail you get from their client that you can pull if you want to make your own dashboard. And this one's obviously running on a UPS. The power, again, we've consolidated to the most efficient on the Gigahorse one using those wall adapters on there. The Gigahorse one, 11,000 plots. So this is the one with the most plots, but it's also using those integrated GPUs pretty heavily to have that happen. I expect the NoSSD one's going to have the same issue where it's heavy GPU use to get that 50% decompression into the harvester. So give NoSSD a shot, especially if you got a VLAN. You don't want to run this on your regular network. I mean, you could. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but just for safety, you might as well run it on VLAN. And they're supportive of that. They have a, I think they even have a Docker image you can get, which means you run a virtual machine to run their client. You don't have to run it on your actual machine. So anyway, that's NoSSD, still doing its thing. You can see it's plotting like crazy. The CPU, actually, I'm surprised, is pretty. I'm not even plotting on the CPU, but just it runs quite a bit of, just to organize, I guess, all the plotting. And then the memory, you only need 128 gigs. If you do the no temp, you do not have to include that flag. It will plot out to a temp drive if you do not include that flag. And then you don't even need any GPU. Well, you probably need a GPU to farm because you're not going to get very good performance CPU farming. But plotting, you can plot on the CPU. If you have a GPU or two, use them to farm or use them to plot. You can do both, actually, if you want. You can use one GPU to plot and farm at the same time. I don't know what performance that would be, but it is possible. So by far, NoSSD is the least resource intensive harvester, and that's because most of the stuff is on their end. You really don't have a lot except just harvesting up plots. And then I would say Gigahorse has probably got the most efficient compression after that. And then the official, the nice thing about official is you have no fees. It's totally free. You can use whatever pool you want. And I think they did a pretty good job getting it out on time, so they have the version 2 client. And it's just an exciting time to be a Chia farmer because there's so many options. We've come from, not even 2 years ago, it was 8 hours to make a plot that was 100 gigabytes and you're stuck with it. Now it's almost getting into proof of work. It's not just proof of space-time anymore. There's a lot of proof of work going on here because you have to have that GPU not only to create the plots, but also to decompress them and provide the partials in time. So if you're not into Chia plotting and you're just playing around, just grab any machine, grab some of these cheap Dells. They're not that expensive. Have a firmware update adventure, and then after that, throw some NoSSD on it because this is really zero effort. You just run a client and it takes care of everything for you. So